Yeah, we rolling, we rock and rolling, we rock and rolling. I was a bit of a mess earlier this morning, but woke up early, went back to bed. It's 9:37 a.m. EST in Montreal, Hawk Island time, and we're going to do laundry because I have to take responsibility, two-thirds, for having damaged my anonymous friends. Well, I served from it because I used it, but she financed it, so, and she asked me to go again today because she had some extra accumulation, and the extra accumulation was of some extra laundry. So basically, I'm doing laundry now for her, and second time I did last Monday. So that means that next Monday is gonna be for me. So firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, electricians, the plumbers, the welders, and train conductors, turn your heads left to right, and before you cross the street, and you gotta get that rock and rolling, and gotta get it on the left and on the right, and see. This is, how many pounds do you think this is? I would say 45, maybe 44, something like that. And that is that rock and roll, and that's why we're gonna get it on the road. You know how my brain works, due to my Asperger's syndrome, the AS, and it's always mathematics, it's always geopolitics, and a little bit of a rough morning, but feeling better, stretched, and I always love to exercise. So I know there's a lot of people that are moody, and I'm no longer depressed and suicidal. That's been a long time, and today's the 14th. Hey, kitty cat. Good morning with the sunshine. And yeah, I'm different. I've totally integrated my difference. Totally acknowledge my hidden disability, because yes, Asperger's syndrome is a disability, so I live with this hidden disability. I'm not getting any special financial compensation or anything like that because of it, but I actually love to work. I had many jobs, but many people like myself with AS, we have trouble keeping long-term employment. They're just as friends, That has been a problem. So for my Aspies, rock and roll, putting these marching steps for my fellow Aspies as well, and I wish I could buy my anonymous friend a house with a washer and a dryer. And last night I had a great movie night. Those chicken wings were really, really good, and that air fryer that she acquired, purchased, financed is really amazing. This is an amazing job. So it just cooked so well, and had some plantain at the end that was so delicious, from Honduras, imported from Honduras. And of course the chicken wings were Canadian chicken wings, and had some fries, spiral fries, and that was really good. So that's good on rock and roll, and that's how we live it. And had a great movie night with a great dinner on a budget. Cost less than $20. the chicken wings and the fries, and that was good. So happy, joyous, content, But I was a bit moody this morning, I still get moody, still get a bit upset. Not really angry though, just anger is not really, just sometimes I can seem intense and have these shutdowns, autistic shutdowns, but anger, not really. Sometimes I get upset and a bit moody, but anger, not really. Kind of cute, isn't that cute? Like circle with the rocks and beautiful gardens, yellow flowers there. But here also gotta turn your heads left and right because sometimes the brakes malfunction. Of course, if the brakes malfunction, the citizen will not be able to pause on time for that, to prevent, because you never know. The brakes can malfunction. The citizen can press the accelerator by mistake, and although there's a stop sign, you have to be prudent because now we are in the public sphere, so we have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and I had to learn the hard way myself. I had to learn the hard way. I'm different, so these unwritten social rules can be very difficult for Aspies. So I live with this disability, this hidden mostly disability of a social nature. predominantly of a social nature. Look at that red, red, red RED, my favorite color. What I said, like my shoes, shirt, and hat, auctioning everything that I'm wearing, and I love doing math, you know. And I'm no Claude Shannon or Stefano Loberza, but I always do math. We're going to discuss some math today, as we do generally for as we are on the road in mathematics. Today that I'm going to ask and inquire at the beginning of this video by expressing my gratitude, grateful, thankful that my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, and I got this backpack on the back with about XYZ pounds of clothes, and it's early in the morning. I'm going to say that I'm grateful for today because I have no nostalgia, although financially stressed. Besides financial stress, I'm pretty good. I like to work. I keep a very active lifestyle, but my anonymous friend, whom if I make $1 million, gonna give her half or buy her house, always checks me a bit. Said, "Hey, your belly's getting back." So I gotta check it and watch it because I think she's all right. So I have to have to watch it because it took me years and years to lose. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. I was depressed, overweight, suicidal, and I lost between 80 pounds and 93 pounds. 80 pounds and 93 pounds, and that has been a tough road, and the tough road that I've mounted, as I lived with this disability, and for a long time I didn't want to accept it. For more than 7 years, I've been between 2015, early spring 2015, and late 2022. And only around late October 2022, I've accepted it. That I have AS, which is Asperger's syndrome, which is not a disease in the traditional sense. There's really no cure. You can manage the characteristics and have some therapy. I don't need much support. I'm special needs in only certain things, but in other things I'm not. And that's where we are, of course, in that correlation. But that's where we coexist together, where we have to build bridges because we have to improve the unemployment level for. Still today, it's really high. It's like a monster, like a horror movie. 80%. 80%. 4 out of 5 Aspies are unemployed. 4 out of 5, so 8 out of 10. The numbers over the past 25 years have improved. At a snail pace. At a snail pace improvement. Used to be higher than 90% unemployment in the 90s and early 2000s, so it improved between 7 and 11%. So in other words, more Aspies have been employed in the past 25 years. A snail pace. Look at these beautiful flowers. Aren't they just gorgeous, beautiful? I love those. So there has been some improvement. Snail pace improvement, but some progress. Better than no progress. Very, very snail pace. But nonetheless, the progress has been there, numerically, statistically, mathematically, quantifiably. So there has been some positive news, some positive developments, some positive progress. Because more Aspies have been hired over the past 25 years because more and more understanding of Asperger's syndrome has been attained, and of higher functioning autism, HFA or ASD, it's also known as ASD1, autism spectrum disorder level 1. So we have our social challenges, sometimes our characteristics, our traits, bodily movements, we can seem broken to you neurotypicals, or weird, outright bizarre, and strange and awkward, but it requires lots of patience as well. Patience is something that can be developed over time to understand, because our brains are fundamentally different, right? So we see information, we see the world differently. Basically, we process information differently. And so, for example, when I say that in my mind, in my brain, there's these constant mathematics going on, mathematical calculations. I'll give you a concrete example, as I did in the past. See, for example, I arrive at this segment here. So my brain now does mathematics in my brain, estimated proportions, possibilities. So in relation to these cars, because I know that the cars are going north and south. However, there's more science and math behind just the direction which they're headed. There's the speed, and there's the fact that there's two mathematical calculations every time that these cars are in motion. So when the cars are in motion, of course, now it's the car stopped. So these mathematics are not the same. But of course, in that relationship they are. But of course, in that sphere, of course, where they exist, is of course the probability and the possibility that there's the possibilities and probabilities of are exact, right, and precise, and their probabilities, of course, are precise and exact. So, of course, all those other probabilities which exist are always in the dimensions, of course, which exist. So, it's good to have a job. Of course, it's good to have a job with that. Rock and roll. Somebody's getting to work, so that's good. So, of course, how the brain works is that there's always these mathematics and these probabilities, and these probabilities, of course, always exist in that relationship. So, that relationship, of course, is always facultative, of course, to the relationship which exists in concordiate. So, of course, now, as we go and as we travel by foot, as we go to do the business of laundry, the mathematics that we see are in relation to the cars. So, for example, each car in motion has each car in motion has a minus and a plus, a mathematical sequence, a mathematical calculations, a mathematical scientific reality for all cars in motion is that they always add mileage, meters, yards, and meters and yards. And of course, they always add meters and yards, and they always add as well. They always add not just meters and yards, but those meters and yards, obviously, they're going to add, in addition, they're going to become kilometers and miles. But there's also a minus. Look at that beautiful garden. The whole world is a garden there. There's always a minus. And of course, that minus is always facultatively related, of course, to the minus is related to their consumption rates. Whether it's gas or electric, there's still a minus, because every car has a consumption rate. So since every car has a consumption rate, of course the cars are consuming. What the cars are, of course, consuming, they're consuming electricity or they're consuming gas. Of course, so the gas that they're consuming, but the gas that they're consuming is, of course, relative to their consumption rate. So, of course, their consumption rate is a validity which exists, or a reality which exists, that is scientifically related, because there's the consumption rates which exist is, of course, always the relationship which exists consequently. For example, this car, from that point to that point to the stop, it will add maybe 25 meters, 45 meters, But it will add a certain number of meters and yards, right? Because it's in motion. This car as well. See, it's adding 5 meters, 15, 25, and so on. But it's also the minus, because they're consuming gas. So when I see the cars, my brain does these estimations. They're not speculations. So it's not a speculation, because a speculation is different than an estimation, because if I estimate, that's based on mathematical, scientific, quantifiable realities, which is the consumption of gas and the fact that the cars that are in motion, they add miles. Well, at first it's not miles. At first it's going to be meters. They add meters and yards. They add meters and yards to their distances. They add meters and yards. Right? First is a few meters, then when it's 1,000 meters, that 1,000 meters is converted into 1 kilometer, because 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So this is constantly going on in my brain, just to and actually I love doing this. I'm pretty joyous and smiling, and sometimes I laugh at myself. I says, because I talk to myself, I say, who kind of does that? And it's probably somebody who's on the spectrum of autism, or somebody who loves mathematics, right? Somebody who loves math. And then when I make the statement that mathematics is everywhere, the question is, do you see it now? Right? Do you see it now? So now all the cars that are in motion, they're adding mileage, and that's a plus, right? Plus 5 meters, plus 10, plus 15, plus yards. Of course, if they're going faster, there's more yards and meters per minute and per second It's also related to the speed, right? To the speed. And then there's the minus. The minus is how much. The minus is how much they're consuming from their gas tank or from their battery because of the consumption, right? Because to go somewhere, it needs an energy, right? It needs oil and petrol and gas. Well, gasoline mostly. 95% of cars run on gas. 95% run on gas, right? 95% run on gas. So the fact that 95% of cars run on gas, we know a little bit how we can calculate or relate in that manner. Let's see this bus, for example. See, I got 6 seconds. For example, this bus, but this bus is a hybrid, so it will consume a little bit of both. So since it's a hybrid, the mathematics will be slightly different because it's a hybrid, and all hybrid cars have a mixed consumption, right? They consume both electricity and gas. But for example, this bus, 103 bus, is in motion, so it consumes either electricity or gas at this point in time, right? But again, most cars are not. Most cars are not. Most cars are, of course, not. Most cars are not electric. Most cars run on gas, right? Most cars run on gas. So, depending on their consumption rate, even if it's a short distance, even if it's 100 meters, it will still consume a few drops. So the cars will still consume a few drops, right? So for example, that car will consume a few drops for XYZ 100 meters, down as well. But those drops will add to become. Those drops will add to become 500 milliliters, and then from 500 milliliters, they will add to become 1 liter. So they add up to become liters. And 1 liter cost, last time I checked, it was $1.83, which is double that it was 7 years ago. Right? So it's adding a tremendous upward pressure on the cost of living. And it's adding a tremendous cost of pressure on the cost of living. So of course, the cost of living that it is of course the relationship, of course, of the fact that many people are struggling. So of course, many people are struggling is the fact that salaries have stagnated generally and overall. So that is, of course, just the reality where we have, and of course, just the reality, of course, of where we exist. It's always the dynamic. So that is, of course, something which is correlated, right, in a manner where these structures are always these mathematical structures, because they're statistics, probabilities, estimation. So they're mathematical structures. So those mathematical structures are always arriving, they're always happening, right? It's a constant for all cars in motions. So of course, all the cars that are in motion, they have those realities. So those realities are constant, but the realities that are constant are always related to the individual cars, because not all cars have the same consumption rate, right? That's important to note and to take mathematical notation of. That what I'm saying is, of course, also there's a variable in a way that each car has a different consumption rate. For example, that car and that car and that car, they probably have different consumption rate per 100 kilometers, per 100 miles. So basically they will consume more or less gas than each other, right? It's lower or higher. You see it now. So there's math everywhere, and I kind of love doing, it's a kind of Aspie love. I'm no Claude Shannon again, Stefano da Blesa, but I constantly do these mathematics in my brain. And now, because I see that there's the legions of the empire, the youth, the children, It's best for me because I have the heavy backpack to just traverse on the other side and then be prudent as well as I traverse because I'm not depressed and suicidal anymore, and I want to build a forgotten goddess temple. See the crows say yes, 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 yes. The crows cheered for the building of the forgotten goddess temple, which I will have beautiful flowers and gardens like this, and to be 11 times, of course, bigger than the St. Joseph's Oratory. And of course, those are the dynamics for that representation and that affairs which exist. So now, of course, as we quantify or qualify that existence and that plurality, of course, of well-being or wellness, and the category of my joy to build a forgotten goddess temple and the Imperial People's Colosseum, as well as the House of the Dragon, Scarlet Crimson, or actually Scarlet and Crimson are shades of red, right? Scarlet and Crimson are shades of red, so as I salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, and all those train conductors and electricians and plumbers, and all those, of course, are involved in the production, distribution of food. And see, that's the St. Joseph's Oratory. There it is. You can see it. See? That's the St. Joseph's. There's the St. Joseph's Oratory. And of course, the St. Joseph's Oratory is so the St. Joseph's Oratory is a big structure in Montreal, and of course the St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal is of course something which you don't have. And of course those are the things which you don't have in that situation where we have now. So of course all of that relationship is the relationship on the faculty that exists, or the reality of my will, my volition, is that I will to build a forgotten goddess temple, although she doesn't need me to build her any temples, because she's got the pyramids, and those verily I tell you they're tombs and temples, but she's got the pyramids and she doesn't need me to build her the forgotten goddess temple. But nonetheless I will it, there's a will parallel to the Imperial People's Colosseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, which used to be known. The Caesar Superdome used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Mercedes-Benz Arena, and of course the Mercedes-Benz before that used to be known as the Louisiana Superdome. And of course the Louisiana Superdome was of course known after that. The name of course changed, and of course the name changed, but just like my name changed. That is what I want to build. Well, something's dripping from the truck, or maybe it's just from the wheels, depending where it was in the mud. But I thought something was dripping. No, I don't think it is. Just saw some marks there. So here I am, Friday, and I go back, clean my room, office, and temple. Just financially stressed, but besides financial stress, I'm pretty good and pretty joyous. I still get moody, but besides moodiness and rock and roll, gotta rock and roll it 24/7, for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, for my fellow Aspies, my fellow LGBTQ plus community, which I'm part of, and for the bakers, truckers, public workers, gardeners, cutting some grass now, I guess, doing some making $1, spending $1, the cooks, electricians, plumbers, welders, public workers, public sanitation workers, delivery workers, construction workers, and those on the cranes, and those who planted this beautiful garden, because I love little gardens like this. And just asking all to not pollute. Don't throw the trash there, eh? Don't throw the trash or the garbage, because it belongs to all of us, and sometimes I pick it up, clean it myself. So here we are, more Friday morning, another road trip. Road trip in a way, but not really a road trip in the traditional sense. But my nana's friend had some accumulation in the laundry, and next week I have to go myself because I didn't go this week, but I'm okay until next week. So next week is gonna be my road to do laundry. Probably Monday is gonna be for me, and I'm going to do for her, and that's where we are, and that's what we do, and that's what we project. So always LOVE, always grateful, thankful, paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, and I always do these weird for some, but some Aspies like myself would probably engage fully on this mathematical discourse and these estimations on probabilities and possibilities, and these are possibilities and probabilities of the estimations which exist, of course, and that existence is, of course, the relationship which is concordant to be in that faculty where we correlate ourselves, and that correlation always estimates and always is and always exists in my mind, in my brain, whenever I see cars usually that are in motion. And then there's, of course, different segments, and those different segments, or rather realities of the segments that exist. Basically, the segments are related to where the traffic occurs, right? When I say these segments, I'm related to the mathematics that I just discussed. So, for example, this segment, this is a one-way street. So it's a lower circulation area than the highways, than the main road over there and other main roads. So that's what I mean by segments. So there's segmented. So those segments are, of course, good. Some work. I would love working, and I can't. I had many jobs actually, but my community still suffers from 80% unemployment still today. It's a horror movie. I know it's monstrous, 80%. Think about that. There's no other community in the world that has that much unemployment. So high for although I'm part of a tiny small minority, right? Because there's less than 1% of people in the world who have AS, who have Asperger's syndrome. There's not that many, and of course, that's the statistic. Right? Less than 1% of people have AS, Asperger syndrome. So, as it is, of course, AS, there's this neurodivergence, but the unemployment for my community is 80%. 80%. The unemployment is 80%, right? So it stands at 80%. It's 11 times higher. The depression and suicidal rates are also very high. So here we have arrived. So yeah, we have arrived. Yeah, that was good. So I timed it exactly, precisely, in order to be timed in a way, of course, that is adjusted exactly and precisely, because I don't want to leave it there for extra time. Because although it's morning, but I don't want to leave it for an excessive amount of time. Actually, no excess time, because I know that it takes how long it takes. So then I know when I have to get back exactly in time when the laundry will be done, so nobody has to wait for that machine. Although it won't wait for my machine, because all the other machines are cleared. And of course, the $5 machines, which I had to use a $5 machine. There were several $5 machines, so it's not the only one. But when I go to the laundry and do laundry, I'm always joyous, and always have that joy in the regards to the joyous reality which exists in me doing mathematics. And the mathematics, of course, which I do, I applied several times over the past 3 years with this company. Just there's a big one, but maybe I should do a follow up. I applied to many jobs. It's just that now I was thinking that there was sometimes that we have to do follow ups, but and I had many jobs. I just kept losing them and losing my jobs. And France has been a constant over the past 11 years and over the past 11 plus years. But this weekend, I'm beginning to celebrate 9 years since I crossed Canada coast to coast. I wish I could do it every year, actually. That would be nice, but financial constraints, sometimes the financial difficulties and it can be problematic. And money is to buy, sell, and money is to buy, sell, and that the relationships which exist, and that relationship which exists, of course, always in reality, of course, to the appellation where, of course, the dictum is. So, of course, the realities, of course, of that parallel administrative work. Because what is money basically but to serve a purpose, and of course that serves a purpose in the reality, of course, that it is a service that is being served. So of course, in that parallel domain and in that parallel reality which exists is a concordiate, right? Because not everybody will use money the same. Right? It is the use of money which differs from individual to individual. So one of my usages of money will be to travel, but mostly internally. The 50 states, 10 provinces, 3 territories. Right? And Montreal is a big island metropolis. So many things you haven't even seen. I haven't even seen. Just on the island. Just on the island. Turn your heads left and right. Before you cross the street, turn your heads left and right and take a moment. And then continue. Although there's the passageways, the pedestrian crossing priority. Oh, they're lost the yellow, but they're kind of beautiful how they are. Of course, the public garden and those yellow flowers, they're just amazing. So we gotta take care of the gardens and gotta relate to that. And yeah, I feel much better now. And my anonymous friend asked me to just do her laundry, and I did her laundry for the second time this week because she had accumulated. So I was supposed to do my laundry, but I can wait until Monday because I have 2 extra pair of underwear and 2 extra pair of underwears, which of course are related to the extra pairs of underwear, which I'm gonna need for until Monday. Fundamentally, although Saturday I don't really need because I rest. Most of my time Saturday is resting, but today I have to clean my room off some temple. Beautiful white flowers, they get just gorgeous. And now, of course, I'm resting on Saturday. Usually I rest and a little bit of that rock and roll. But besides that, I live a very active lifestyle. It's just it's an ongoing summer. I wanted to go to the river bathe, take a bath, and of course I went to take a river to go to take a bath, and I will probably go in the coming days by the end of the month in early September because summer lasts until September. So I want to go. There's some places where you can't. Well, there's a place where it's safe to bathe, and there's places where it's like it's it's a it's like a beach, and there you can swim. You can swim, right? But most places along the river don't swim unless they're designated for swimming or for just dipping. A DIP, dip your feet and body and splash it up with water, get some sun. So that's why I want to go to where I usually go over the past years, and in Lachine or another spot. There's several spots actually that I haven't been, and sometimes I go to these places in Montreal and I have these flashbacks. I say, wait a minute, I was here 11 years ago. I was here 12 years ago. I was here 9 years ago. Because I do have a good memory, just it just gets a bit foggy, blurred before February 2014. Before February 2014, which is more than 12 years ago, so it's a long time. Before that, my memory gets a bit blurred up, like foggy, foggy, and like before October 2013, it's there's like a blackout. It's like a blackout. Sometimes memory comes back. It's a type of amnesia. It's can be caused by RA, retrograde amnesia. It can be caused by different factors, such as, of course, I don't know if I was a junkie before that, in 2012, 2010, 2009, 2008, I don't know. Before that, maybe I was a junkie, maybe I was an alcoholic. I don't drink much, very rarely, and actually cannabis is legal in Canada. Weed, marijuana is legal. I actually have 2 joints that are rolled. I rolled them in. Actually, it's been 3 years. I think I rolled them in. Yeah, it's been a long time. They're still rolled. I don't know if they're still good because I bought legal cannabis more than 3 years ago. Actually, I think it was April 2003 that I bought it. And I still have left the joints that I rolled that I never smoked. So I have legal cannabis that is legal because it's legal here in Canada. So I don't do drugs. I don't smoke, But I don't know if before that I did, because I'm celebrating 11 years. 11 years since I moved where I live now, and active lifestyle is important for me. I always work out, train, exercise. Although this week and last week and the next week is gonna be a little bit more relaxed because I need of course to take some time to also rest. Because when you work out, train, exercise, you have to give your body some time to heal as well, depending on what programs do you do. Depending on what type of workouts you do, obviously, but rest is also important, but I'm not really working out, training, exercising for aesthetics necessarily, but you can do it. Look at this nice bench here. You can come and relax there, and HUG, main message is hug like you never hugged before. Hey, look at that, there's a bee inside. Beautiful yellow flower, right? Hey, bee, there's a bee. See the bee? Amazing Mother Nature, look at that. Working hard, harvesting some pollen, and that's how they make the honey. So if there's a bee, honey must be somewhere close. And these yellow flowers are just amazing, eh? I wish I could buy my anonymous friend a house somewhere in Montreal Island, on the island. And guess he was my friend because of the money. Cause I never really had any. She was my friend because of the money. Cause I never really had any. But that's why we go, and that's how we rock and roll, and that's how we structure, of course, in the relationship where we have. And it's something that is something that I would do, because money, you spend it, money serves a purpose. Hey, you're happy. Me too. Happy. Happy, smiling sun. Where you going? Where you headed? Why you smiling? Why you joyous? I love it, love it, love it. Thanks for putting it there. Just brings a smile to myself, my being. So watch you smiling, smiling son. I'm a rock and rollers. I go where you know how I tow it up. I gotta be a non-bee and non-bees. Where there's bees, there must be honey. Don't stop dancing, gotta see. Dancing is my favorite sport. I love dancing, and oh wow, the temperature just cooled down here tremendously. There's a tremendous cool down. It's just right here, maybe the dampness, the environment, the trees, that just cooled down the whole. It's like by a few degrees, maybe a few degrees. Hey, red flower, flower, flower. By a few degrees, it just dropped, and just of course dropped a few degrees, and that's where we are now. So, gotta salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, train conductors. Let me see, can I squeeze in through here? Oh, no, I'm not gonna be able to pass by that side, but I have to go by here. Oh, can I squeeze? Not sure. Maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna squeeze by here. It's gonna be tight, but yeah, just enough space for me to squeeze by the truck because they got some work there. And it's good to have a job, eh? It's good to have a job. Good to have a job. I had many jobs. It's just I lost my jobs, and that's just okay. This is not just me as an individual. This is my whole community of Aspies. Eh? People on the spectrum are unemployment levels are 80%. 80%. And of course, it's a nice day, and just gotta hydrate a bit. I'm just gonna find a spot where I can hydrate and hydrate good. But I wanted to come look at this beautiful Mother Nature. See how kind of the growth on it with those it's kind of like mushrooms grow on it. It's quite amazing how Mother Nature works. You see those mushrooms there? They're quite amazing. Mother Nature and these flowers here. See, look at those. Thank you for embellishing the place here, and of course the embellishment of the place is something which we have as a common public gardens. And I know the workers were paid by the hour, but see, that has to be put in the trash. See, this is what I'm saying. That there, see, it's too dirty to recycle it, but it's not good for it to stay there. See, because if it stays there, you gotta put it in the trash, and that's where it is, and that's where it goes. So, bus drivers, be nice to the bus drivers, eh? Some bus drivers. So it's good to have a job. Oh, the salaries are good for the public, and salaries are good, and it's good to have a job nowadays. It's just, you see those horses there? That is really artistic. Look at that. See their beautiful horses? That's really a graffiti art that I really, really appreciate. Somebody really has talent there, as you can see, of course, how it is now and how it's been done. But I'm not that talented in drawing, but of course that is a graffiti art, which of course I must include in that relationship. But of course that inclusion, and of course just the representation, of course, of the inclusiveness of artists who do graffiti arts and who are able to do that art which is placed on the walls, because it requires a special interest in the realities which we have. And of course we gotta get it on the left and right and in the middle, and that's how we got to be. And so it's something that I love to do myself as a just rock and roll, I meant to say. I don't love because I'm not good at it, but I love to look at people who paint. I love art generally, but just my art, to be specific, is rock and roll. Is a different type of art because I can't do the drawing as they can, but of course I can do the of course I can do the other art. So of course that is just the reality of having that art, and of course the oh, that's just the way it is with me. My art style is rock and roll. I write rock and roll songs, lyrics I compose, and whenever I see flowers like this, I start swinging my hips. And I love to go on the toes. Rock, 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 rock and roll. You know that I love to go on the toes. We say left to right it every day. And I gotta sway the hips and play like this. It ain't nothing but hey, look at that. That was a groundhog. He goes right into the bushes. The groundhog with his little butt, puck, 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 puck. We got flora fauna here aplenty, and this is a great pot of flowers there. Look at that. That's amazing. This garden is great. And this garden is also great, has different ornaments, and I would love to have this, but now I'm doing laundry, but I love the gold, and oh yeah, chandelier is really nice. I wish I could have a house and buy my anonymous friend a house anywhere, and that would be nice. Chandeliers, I love chandeliers like that. Six, the ones that have six, 3 and 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specifically. Chandeliers with 6 sides, like I don't know how many it was. I believe it was 6, right? I love 6-sided chandeliers. Yeah, it was 6. 6. It's really nice. Yeah, but I have no place now. Where I live is small, better than where I used to live, eh? But it's really nice. So it has 6. So, but it's nice. And the chandeliers are something that I love. And of course, if I could afford to buy a house, I would buy a house. Many house affordability now for many millennials, and Gen Z is becoming very stressful for our generations, and it's financial burden, which sometimes you have to summarize, or if there is debt itself is not really bad or negative. The problem is debt servicing, right? So debt servicing can become problematic. Servicing the debt, right? That's where the problem can arise by debt servicing, right? So debt servicing can be problematic in that sense. So debt servicing is something that can be an issue. Debt servicing can be an issue. It's not that is debt servicing is the interest basically. Debt servicing is basically the interest. That's a nice ensemble of a pot there, eh? It's nice. And yeah, beautiful gardens. Montreal has beautiful summers and beautiful gardens and beautiful spring and autumn and all seasons. Look at that. That's nice, gorgeous. It's just our winters for some can be, our winters can be harsh for some. It's a reality which can hit many, but then of course you can engage in that domain, of course, of engagement, and that domain of engagement is of course whereas winters have changed as well due to the climate, but it's possible that we still have some hard hitting winters coming. It's not out of the blue. And I just want to go here again at the just want to show you that art again, and then we're gonna exit on the other side. And actually, I got I say 15 more minutes, 16 more minutes until my laundry cycle is done. So maybe we're not gonna do the full tour, but I just go around it. So I salute the firefighters, the bakers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, and it's tough. My financial situation now is really tough. I've been I am financially stressed, and that is really my only stress, which I do have. Besides financial stress, I'm pretty okay. Besides financial stress, besides financial stress, I'm okay. Just besides financial stress, I'm okay. That one I wanted to show again, and this one here, see, this one here is really, really nice. Really, really nice. Whoever did this, I really like the fingers with the red, and it's quite a beauty. Somebody has some talent, and very talented individuals that exist. And I'm just gonna lay it here a bit because I wanna hydrate. So it's important to HYD, RATE. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hydrate. Super important to hydrate, and the hydration is gonna be super important because it's getting the water is getting hotter. So if I wait another half hour, it probably not be that I will not be able to drink it that much. So I'm just gonna drink this 500 milliliters water from Quebec sourced water. See, it's eau de source naturelle, Quebecois source, Quebec source, which is good. It's local. We got good water here. Yeah, it's still cold. It's still very good to drink. Shoo. Oh yeah, very good water. See, it's Quebec sourced, Quebec, so it's from Canada, from North America, and it made me think of. I'm gonna change topics now. We're gonna do some math a bit later after we retrieve the after we retrieve the laundry. Is my belly coming back? A bit, not too much. Not too much. But I gotta be aware, so I eat sweets, but still rock and rolling. Can I get abs in 2 weeks? So today is the 14th, the end of the month. I guess I'm gonna have to do a lot of squats, and maybe if I go hit, there's a lot of bees there. See, the bees love those. And maybe if I hit it's a nice garden. Love your garden, whoever you are. Good job, good job. I could always learn. I did some, of course, gardening, urban farming. I did. I was allotted a little plot of land, but of course the little plot of land which I was allotted was minimal. So yeah, the world is a garden. Look at these beauties. But it made me think of something that I've been seeing in the past 6 days, and even last night. I was in regards to the heat waves and the drought in Europe, across Europe. So last week, 6 days ago, I saw that Hungary had reduced its. They didn't close it fully, from my understanding, but they reduced, or they had to stop some processes that they put on pause, or they diminished the power, the electricity that was derived from the nuclear power plant in Hungary. And that was the first time in 44 years. The first time in 44 years. Think about that. The first time in 44 years. 44 years. 44 years that hasn't happened in Hungary. And yesterday I saw that now, from my understanding, was fully stopped. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Romania. In Romania for the first time ever. Because of the rivers, they're suffering one of the worst, if not the worst, droughts on record with the heat waves. So in just a few weeks of July and now August, so 6 weeks of summer with the heat waves, beautiful yellow flowers, they are having these massive problems. And some of the rivers have been drying up, which can be very problematic. So there's a drought, and I was already doing a contingency plan. It was like a contingency mass mobilization via NATO in a public-private partnership in case of an emergency. Fundamentally, I'm going to discuss it a bit. It's basically to evacuate, to bring into our empire of the 63, 10% of each affected NATO member country in Europe. Right? Because most of the countries are in Europe, except for Turkey, it's kind of in between Turkey, but Sweden is the 32nd. Sweden is the 32nd. Member of NATO. Sweden is the 32nd. Those beauties. 32nd member country of NATO, Sweden. So I was just thinking, the mathematics, of course, of the heat, and by how much did the river shrink in terms of percentage, because of course it's the depth, right? It's in meters and yards, right? It's not kilometers deep, but for example, if it went from 10 meters deep, 10 meters to 7, that's 30%, right? So it's quantifiable. There's a quantification. Look at those beautiful yellow flowers. So whatever it is, it's basically the depth, the velocity. Well, it's not velocity. Velocity is speed and distance. But actually, there is a velocity. The velocities also can be affected because a river is in motion. So, but in truth, there is a velocity to the rivers, right? The rivers are in motion. The water is in motion. So there is a velocity to the river. So it's not really false or not scientifically true to not say that, because yes, they move in pretty much one direction, the rivers. Whether they move east, west, north, south, or southeast, the river can flow southeast, and at one point it can just turn south, right? Rivers can be like a snake. It can go like a zigzag, right? North, south, south, actually it can't really go north, south, really. It can go south, west, and then southeast, right? If it goes northeast or northwest, it can go, I'm pointing the finger north, so it can go northeast, that's northwest, that's north, that's northeast, that's northwest. So if it goes like this, that trajectory toward to that side is going northwest. If it goes that side like that, it's going northeast, like a snake. It goes northeast, northwest, right? So northeast, northwest. So of course that's the trajectory. So of course if it goes whatever distance it goes, it's the distance that is the speed. So you can go northwest or north-south, northeast and north-south, northeast and north-south, right? Northeast and north-south, right? And then it goes, well, if it goes south, so that's the south. So a river can go southeast or southwest, right? That's southeast, that's southwest, southwest, southeast, right? Yeah. Yes, Javier, yeah, that's where you can go. So I'm going north now. See, that's the west, that's east. That's east. So in other words, the river can go northeast, north south, southeast, south north. But south, not south north. Correction. No. It cannot go south north. It has to go southeast or southwest. Right. That's the direction. So if it goes east or west, southeast or west, then of course it goes those directions. Right. Southeast, southwest. Look at this beautiful garden. Beautiful garden with the beautiful butterflies. South, west, southeast. Right? That's where we can go. These are nice. These are beautiful. Eh? Beautiful. Beautiful. So, basically, there is a velocity to the river. However, the river can go slower, but it can. But it depends because not all, of course, not all rivers go at the same speed. So the St. Lawrence has a speed, right? St. Lawrence has a speed, and of course, that is the speed. St. Lawrence has a speed, right? And that is the speed. And of course, the speed, which it is, I'm gonna get out of the way. Just get out of the way. Gotta get out of the way for the child to go. So the speed is XYZ. We don't know the speed, right, of the rivers really. Well, we can kind of know the speed, but we won't really, because it's not that easy to quantify the speed, to qualify the speed. It goes. The fact is that the river goes in directions, right? It has a directions. So we can say that it goes in a certain directions. And of course, the directions that it goes into is either northeast, north south, or southeast or southwest, right? So if the European rivers dried, so if there's a drought in Europe, because this drought seems to have affected hundreds of millions of people in Europe, so I had to shut down the nuclear power plant because of that. So because this nuclear power plant is so, it gives electricity to millions of people, right? And millions of people receive electricity. So if they have to cut down on that, electricity, then of course there's millions of people that are affected. So there's a mass scale. So now I'm getting goosebumps. So I was thinking of, in terms of a worst case scenario, a drought that affects hundreds of millions of people. It's starting to be affected. And the fact that, got to double check on the news, the fact that Romania closed its power plant is, but it's a crazy, well, it's a crazy, it's not that it's crazy in the sense that it's like an insanity in the disease that, or something that's it, but it's extremely problematic. It's extremely problematic because millions of people depend on it, right? So what is the drought? The drought affects millions of people. The drought affects millions of people. So millions of people are affected by this drought, right? I just wanted to see there. See, there's somebody put Math Lord, and again, I love math, but I'm no Claude Shannon, Stefano de Blazer, but I love mathematics. The stickers that they put stickers, Math Lord. Math Lord, eh? Ready to unload. Oh, this was in it. And the tissues. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that feels good. Oh yeah, it got really heavier now because of the increase in, of course, the weight. The weight increased. So of course, now we're gonna do some mathematics. When the mathematics, which is gonna be, of course, done, is the mathematics that is gonna have to be aligned with the mathematical realities which exist now in reality. So the math which exists is consequentially everywhere. And of course, that reality that is always superimposed or always real as it is in that domain. And of course, the reality in the domain is that I was at the laundromat. So the mathematical realities are related to the laundromat. So at the laundromat, there's multiple layers. And yeah, I'm happy, smiling, joyous because my brain now has a feast and a mathematical feast and good to have a job. Good to have a job. It's nice. I like jobs. I love working with. Of course, that is the relationship which exists with Aspie that my community has 80% unemployment level. So enough about Aspies, my fellow Europeans. My fellow suffering from the drought. I'll not get it for that solutions, but it's Mother Nature, it's quite problematic. So, for example, that's where we are now today, and of course the correlation where we are, of course, in the sphere of doing some mathematics. And yeah, of course, I'm joyous because I love math and I always do these mathematics. It's always a joy for me to do math. And of course, that is the reality of the math, that it's everywhere. So at the laundromat, you have specific mathematical calculations, and those specific mathematical calculations are always included. And of course, always included are that it's a data sets. So those data sets are of course always in the reality, of course, but that are produced. So, but I cannot say that I'm a data set. I'm a data point, right? I'm a data point because my data point is me as a citizen who used the $5 machine. And of course, the $5 machine that I have used is the $5 machine that I have used. that I have used. It represents a data point in the data set today that's being made today. Because I went early, so it's for me it's the morning. Someone's gonna go in the afternoon. Maybe other people will use that same machine a few times, right? A few times. And of course, that is the reality of that fact. It's a scientific, mathematical fact, but that's what it is. So there's math everywhere, specifically at the laundromat, the mathematics. And the math that exists there is multi-sided. It has a multiplication and a multiple sides to it. Multiple sides. You gotta turn your heads left and right here when you cross the street. So the multiple sides of the mathematics are always included. And of course, all that inclusion is it's a dynamic one, because I can only calculate, for example, for yesterday, but it's not going to be exact calculations, it's going to be estimations. But these estimations, mathematical estimations, will have constants and variables that will be calculated in the same manner if we would have the information or supplementary detailed information. So this is the layout. So the laundromat, there's consumption of water. For example, my machine consumed XYZ ABCD amount of liters of water. Now how many? I don't know for sure. I can say 3.5, 4, 4.4. 0.4 represents 400 milliliters, mLs, right? Because 1,000 milliliters is 1 liter. So that would be the consumption for that machine that I use, the bigger machine, the $5 machine, right? The $5 machine. Now, the other point is that somebody might use the $4 machine, the $3 machine. So they have different ratios of water consumptions. And of course, different ratios of water consumptions that exist. Right? So the water consumptions that exist are of course necessary, but you can't do the laundry without that consumption. So that is always, it's always ever present, you know? It's always ever present. Right? It's always ever present, right? So it's always ever present. When somebody's using the machines, obviously it's not when the machines are not in use. In usage, they don't consume water. But that's the math. So for yesterday was Thursday, the 13th of August. So Thursday, the 13th of August, there was an exact amount of people that went in to use it. But that doesn't give us the information of how many machines were used or how many times the machines were used. And of course, that doesn't give us the amount. And of course, the amount of the machines will differ. And of course, the difference is going to be in their relations. So that relation is that's the relationship. So that's the mathematics. So of course, that mathematics is of course always correlated. So of course, all that correlation is that reality, and that reality is that I so now the other point is that there's the consumption of the there's the consumption of the electricity. Here we got Hydro-Quebec. So the electricity is clean, zero pollution, zero emission, and that is just the reality of that. Reality, of course, that is the reality, of course, of the zero pollution, zero emission electricity. Hey, but that's true. Thank you to the workers of Hydro-Quebec of the past many decades, to build the 63 generating power dams and generating power stations, and that's where it is. That's where it exists. So of course, that's where the layout plays. But of course, that is just the representation, of course, to be, and that is just that reality, of course, to correlate. It's good to have a job. Workers, 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 public workers, doing a lot of that good stuff, eh? Some good work in here. No, you're paid by the hour, so I'm not concerned about your financial wellness because I'm financially stressed, and it's good to have a job, but just minimize the interest payments, aka the debt servicing. Back to the math of the laundromat. So the mathematics of the laundromat is ever present. Well, it's in usage, but there's several consumption rates. There's the water being consumed. So the water that's being consumed is, of course, an amount. So that amount will be a certain amount that will vary from the different machines. So the different machines will have different. Well, look at beautiful flowers here. But the $3 machine will be less than the $4 machine, and the $4 machine will be less than the $5, increasing greater than or lesser than. And of course, all the other machines, that will be the $2.25 machine and the other $3 machines. So basically, I have kind of five different machines. So each would have a different consumption rate because the engines are different, and the inside layout is different. They're bigger. But actually the $4 machine is bigger than the $3 machine. The $3 machine is bigger than the $2.25 machine, and the $5 machine is the biggest that I use today because my anonymous friend had a big load. So he would have been too much for the $4 machine. So I used the biggest machine, which was perfect for this amount of laundry. So there's the consumption rate, and of course there's every citizen who uses the machine. But every citizen, like I'm citizen X, let's say for today, right? Some citizens will use different machines. It's possible that someone might use $3 machine, $4 machine, or three machines or two machines, right? 2 machines or 3 machines. It's not necessarily that a citizen who goes will use just one machine. It's possible sometimes I use myself the $3 machines, 2 $3 machines, or I will use the $3 and the $4 machine, right? Which costs 7. 3 plus 4 is 7. Right? So a bigger and a smaller one, depending on what I have. Sometimes I use 2 $3 machines. That's $6. So in other words, there's the monetary mathematics of the mathematical cost. And of course, I use tokens. I have to disinfect my hands right when I arrive at home because there's microbes, bacteria, germs. So please keep the protocols of COVID, by the way. The protocols of COVID. So once I get back home, I'm going to automatically disinfect. Sometimes, more often than not, I actually do it right on the spot after I use the machines, after I put the tokens, that is, because each token represents a quarter. So that means I had to touch 20 different tokens, right? Because each token is a quarter, so the $5 machine is 5 times 4, right? So 20 tokens. It's basically like I would have put 20 quarters to get to $5. Look at that beautiful yellow flowers there. So the tokens are internal usage, and there's microbes, bacteria, germs on them, right? So that has to be also taken into account. So, but basically what I'm saying is that I keep the protocols of COVID, the sanitation protocols, the COVID sanitation protocols to the best of my ability, because I understand that there's a financial burden that many people cannot afford at the moment because our financial, well, the financial reality has, of course, greatly become more difficult, right? More difficult for many, including myself. Well, I've been, of course, struggle for years. I've been struggle for years, but of course, stress for years, and of course, that's my stress. That's my stress now. But regardless, paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, and I love to do mathematics, such as I'm going to continue to do now. So at the laundromat, there's multiple mathematical variables and constants because the machines will have a constant consumption within themselves. Constant within themselves. So each machine will have a consumption rate. Right, look at those beautiful flowers. Just gonna get out of the way a bit because I have a big backpack. So the money that I put in for the machine is $5. Right, 20 tokens. If you use the $3 machine, then it's $3, and so on and so forth. So, gotta give a shout out again to N.A.C.W.P for the dams, 63 generating power stations, dams which were built, and the other ones which were, of course, which we will build. So that's the relationship with that. Beautiful garden here. Love it. So math is everywhere. So specifically at the laundromat, there's layers and layers of mathematical calculations that are done, that exist, right? So for yesterday, for example, we would have the exact number of people that went and how many machines were used. And then the different machines that were used. The $3 ones, the $4 ones, and the $5 ones. So we would have the numbers. And then we would do the math to add how many tokens were used total. And how much, then if we would know the information, we would know how much water was consumed by each machine. Each machine will use an exact amount of water each time for each cycle. For each cycle. Yeah. My machine used, I don't know how many, but maybe 4 liters, 5 liters, or something like that. 4 liters or 5 liters. So, of course, my machine will have used a certain amount of water. And, of course, that certain amount of water will be also backed by the amount of electricity. Because there will be an exact amount of electricity which is going to be used. So that amount of electricity will also be different from machines to machines, because the $3 machine will use a different amount of electricity, right? It will not be the same. So, in other words, the electricity will be in kilowatts. So that is the consumption rate. That is the consumption rate, right? That is the consumption rate of both the electricity and the volume. Of water. You see it now, there's math everywhere. And not just that, but it's also the amount of tokens. So the money. And of course the money is that relationship. That the money is always a constant for the different machines. But for each machine, there's also the constant of the amount of electricity and the amount of water that's being used. What's the variable? I'm going to give you 10 seconds. What's the variable? The variable is, get 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The variable is the laundry soap. The laundry soap. That will change, meaning a mathematical variable is something that will change, because I only put a certain amount of I don't use bleach. I don't use fabric softener. Neither does my friend. Neither does my friend. But that is the determinant. That what determines that variable is the citizen, right? The citizen. So the citizen will put a different amount. A different amount. Some citizens might use fabric softeners, but a fabric softener, look at that. A fabric softener I don't use, but some people might use fabric softeners, laundry detergents, and so on and so forth. Do you see it now? Math is everywhere, and specifically at the laundromat, there's so much math that's quantifiable by addition. Of course, we would have to add all the numbers from yesterday, from last week, from last month. All those numbers will add, of course, increasingly. So, of course, they will add to a certain proportion. Of course, that is the relationship, of course, which exists. So, of course, the proportions and the mathematical relations which exist are always in the dynamic that exists. So, of course, always the dynamics that exist are mathematical because they're the additions. So, of course, all those additions are adding up to a great number. Volume is going to be in liters and liters and liters. The amount of electricity is going to be a lot, right? It will add up to a great number. So the addition will be so much that it will be in the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of liters. It will be thousands of liters over, of course, over a week, a few weeks, not every day there. Okay, not every day, thousands of liters, but every day there's several individuals, and several individuals will use several machines, right? If I was the third one today, or the fourth one, and there's gonna be 40 others, or 40 other loads, that's 44 total. And of course it could be that it is 44 or 50. And of course, if it's 50 or 60, whatever the case is, it could be that it's increasing or decreasing as well from day to day. But the variables are the laundry detergent and the liquid. The liquid and the laundry detergent that's being put in, right? Because I used, let's say, I think it's a 250 milliliter bottle. Maybe it was, let's say, to the full, 250 milliliters. I'm going to double check, but that's the number. It's a smaller bottle, right? So maybe it wasn't full to the top. So let's say 200 milliliters. Somebody might put bleach, or might put just more or less, might just use 100 milliliters, which is co-equivalent in grams. So those are the variables, because those are not decided by the machine that automatically does the laundry and uses automatically the same amount, more or less, of milliliters of water, of kilowatts of electricity, and so on and so forth, right? And so on and so forth. You see it now? Yeah. So math is everywhere. Now, also the amount of electricity. Each machine, we use a certain amount of electricity, so that's just what it is. That's just what it is, right? The math can be brutal sometimes, but math, you can Greco-Roman wrestle it. Watch the branches, because they fall, see? Fall from the sky. So, that in that sense, of course, the mathematics is based on exact or precise calculations and mathematical constants, because in this case it's really addition and subtraction. Sure, we can do percentages, a certain percentages, and then break it down, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. We surely can. It can get more complex. We can say how many percentages, for example, let's say a total of 44 loads were washed. Then we can say that a quarter of those were used by the $3 machines. Another quarter were used by the $4 machines. 10% by the 5, and then the 15% by the 225. So yes, it can get a little bit more complex because of the different machines. So then we get the total number, and because they have differences, there will be in the percentages, which the percentages will be exactly according to the number of times that the machines were used. For example, let me give you an example. Let's say yesterday, I'm going to take an easy number to do the percentage. Let's say 100 times total machines were used. Out of those 100 times, there were 15 $5 ones, 35 $4 ones. So then we arrived to 50, that's half. Then there was okay, now 50. Okay, let's do this again. So 100 times yesterday, let's say Thursday, let's say the numbers were 100 times, 100 cycles, but of different machines. So this will be the breakdown. So of course the breakdown would be, of course, that it would be for 100. So let's say now from 100 that 15 out of the 100 were the $5 machines. 15, right? 25 were the $4 machines. So then we have 40% total, 40%. 15 for the $5, 25 for the $4, 35 for the $3, 35 for the $3, right? So that's 75, and 25 for the 225. So those numbers, 25, 35, 25, and 15, because I picked the number 100, will represent automatically the percentages. If it's double, we just double them. So we can break it down in percentages. And this is how my mind works constantly. It is percentages, proportions, estimations, ratios. But in this case, since I don't have all the numbers, it's also estimations, probabilities and possibilities again. Right? But the exact numbers exist. And the exact numbers would be based on the math that I just discussed. So we would add them all together, and the different ones that would be $3 ones, $4 ones, $5 ones will be all, of course, in relation, of course, to the administrative relations, of course, to B. And that will be the becoming of it, right? The becoming of the math. The mathematics would be integral because the math would be ever present. Ever present. So, of course, ever present is where we exist in the circular manner. I can pass here? Yeah, I think I can pass. So, of course, it's good to have a job. There's some work. It's good to have a job. And that's just the reality, of course, of being. But, of course, that is just where we are today. Why don't you see? So, play some my song play that I wrote, the Rainbow Julius Caesar, where I sang a little bit of a homosexual type of rock and roll, but I was just imagining the workers type of work, and of course the workers type of work to be is that the relationship, of course, which exists. So of course the relationships which exist is always in the dynamic, and of course all that dynamic is pass it through here, turn your heads left and right. And of course, that's the relationship which exists. And it's good to have a job, eh? Good to have a job, paid by the hour. You can afford to pay your bill, and you can afford to pay your bills. Hey, look at those beautiful. It's good to have a job. Good to have a job. Good to have a job. And I was imagining, like, without rock and roll, you know. So I love rock and roll, but back to the math. I always sing for the workers, you know, the N.A.C.W.P, the North American Collective Workers Party. So that's how we do it. That's how we drill it, and that's how we drill it in the sphere, and that's how we have it, and that's of course something which has to be correlated, and that correlation is always now. But back to the math. So there will be an addition, and all those additions would be added up. Of course, but they would add it up to such a big number that the big number will be over a period of time. The longer the time, the bigger the number. But it will add, of course, of how much it will be consumed. The water consumption, the consumption rates for the water for the different machines, there's the math. The electricity, each machine when it does a cycle, mine took 39 minutes. Today, those 39 minutes, it has different spinning cycles. So it has different intervals of consumption of electricity. But it will consume electricity. clean, zero pollution electricity that goes all the way to the United States, several states, 3 of them, all the way to Manhattan Island. So of course, in that reality is of course that it is that relation which exists for the consumption rate. So those consumption rates are always accordingly set to whatever the machine consumes, right? It's according to the different machines. Again, they differ between themselves. They differ between themselves. It's not the same. I wish I could fill this fridge up. Oh yeah, there's some food there, so let's see what we can. 14th of August, I don't know. Let's see. Carrots, I guess. What is that? A bagel. Some of those. I'm gonna leave some bread. Carrots. Just gonna take a look at the noodles. Rice noodles. Somebody with that sauce. I'm just gonna take the condiments and these little 3 bagels there. And I'm gonna leave all that bread. Thank you for the donation, by the way. It's not just for me. Somebody's gonna use that bread, but super important. Food security. I wish I could fill it up. It's just we have to, of course, be prudent. Yeah. So is that the bakers? Bakers, eh? The bakers baked it. So who do I thank first? The wheat producers, the farmers, or the bakers? The bakers or the which one's first? Which one do I thank first? The bakers or the farmers of the wheat? And the truckers. Because to reach me, the math of the bread, probably the truckers who traversed with the wheat at the bakery store, and then the labor. See, just to get the bread, comes from the farms, has to travel, and there's probably miles and even hundreds of miles and hundreds of kilometers of transportation for that bread to reach me. You see it now? Turn your heads left and right. Math is everywhere. And of course, it's possible that the wheat came from the prairies, traveled all the way here, traveled all the way here, and of course, that it traveled all the way here, and is of course the traveled all the way here, and then he went into the baker's hands. Look at that beautiful garden. And the baker baked it for me to have it. Right? And all this applies to all the bread. The wheat, well, depending on what type of grain was used. The wheat flour, right? It goes from wheat, it's flour, where it is rye bread, flour bread, and from the farmers, then to the bakers. But the paradox is that it has to travel a lot. So the fact that it has to travel a lot, we're also vulnerable in case of a crisis, a petrol, economic, oil crisis. So that could be really problematic in that sense, right? That could be really problematic in that sense because it has to travel so far sometimes. Even for the fast food, eh? Sometimes there's hundreds and hundreds of miles and hundreds of kilometers that our food has to cross, to traverse, by the trucks, by the vans, of course, that it is so far away from the distance points. They're so far away in between each other. And of course, that's the distance, of course, which is in between. And of course, that distance can be hundreds of miles and hundreds of kilometers. Hundreds of miles and hundreds of kilometers. So, of course, all that faculty or all that relation is of thousands of kilometers and thousands of miles sometimes. Right, but mostly hundreds. Thousands, it's possible that it is thousands, but it's highly likely that it is hundreds, right? Hundreds rather than thousands. But mathematically, it's possible that it is thousands and hundreds. Mathematically, right? Mathematically, it's possible. But specifically for the food, I just got to do a little bit of rock and roll here. Wow, I love this garden. It's just amazing. It just brings me so much joy just to encircle it about. And our whole world is a garden. Look at this. Amazing, eh? Love it, love it, love it, love it. Especially those yellow ones, rock, and those ones. It's just beautiful. Just gorgeous. This is so nice. Amazing. Yes. Amazing garden. Just so nice. I like to go by that garden and it's just so nice, you know? So nice. Just pleasant and it's so nice. So beautiful and yeah, so think about the math of the distances. We're gonna close up with the math of the laundromat, but this is just to finalize it is that there's so much math at the laundromat, the consumption rate of the water, the consumption rate of the electricity, the different machines that are being used, and the different amounts of detergent, laundry detergent that are being used, the laundry detergent or whatever is being used. Oh, it went up by a cent, but 7 cents from 6 days ago. It was 177.9. 177.9, 177. But it doubled in 7 years, eh? So most salaries have not doubled. Most salaries only increased 5-10%. So this is the big problem. While our food prices increase has been linked to our paradoxical dependency on transportation systems, which we have attained, and it took decades and decades and decades to arrive to this reality. It took decades and decades and decades to arrive to this reality, because of course there was so much that is being done over the decades in terms of the transportation systems, how they were of course developed, that of course the mass transportations which have over sometimes thousands of kilometers and thousands of miles. Well, of course, if it's import export, sometimes they have to cross the ocean, and of course the ocean, of course, which of course have to cross sometimes by the ports, then it's even more. So because there's trucks and trucks with goods now across Canada, United States, there's thousands of trucks going with all the goods, all the bacon, all the cheese, all the potatoes, all the logistics that are involved. Sometimes we don't see it unless you see it or you compute the mathematics that I rock and roll of the distances, right? Because basically, fundamentally, they're distances. Turn your heads left or right when you cross the street. They're distances that can be very large. So of course, if it's 100 or whatever, 100 kilometers or whatever the case may be, it could be hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, right? Hundreds of kilometers. Or it could be thousands of kilometers, depending. There's the mathematics. That's always a constant. But the mathematics is a constant, but if it's between the same two distant points, that is, if it's different locations, then it can vary. But usually we can say that between the trucks, of course, between the trucks, they can be co-equal, right? So between the trucks, they can be co-equal from point A to point B, from point A to point B. So from point A to point B, so from point A to point B, it will always be the same. So of course, it will always be the same, and that's what it's gonna be from point A to point B. From point A to point B. And of course, that is the reality, of course, of existing. So of course, the existence is that will be facultative according to the distance, right? Point A to point B, for example, from Florida, the oranges have to come here, so it's thousands of miles and thousands of kilometers. We're gonna finish with that, this beautiful garden. But yeah, see, it can be in thousands. Can be in thousands. So love math, I always do math, and pledge your allegiance to our family, and pretty happy, joyous now. I'm just gonna go clean my room. It's Friday, so LOV.